You know, right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, entertainment, entrepreneurship, modeling, and so much more. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, we are very excited for our guests today. Why don't you let everybody know who we have joining us?
I see you threw in the modeling part. Excellent. Makes a lot of sense. But yeah, currently working for Ford Models and studying integrative nutrition. Very spiritual, holistic person. And you know me, I love those types, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anytime they come on, love that. Um, have to clarify if there's any relation to Brittany and Jamie Lynn, but we have Shey Spears on with us. Caitlin, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I am doing amazing. It's the holiday season, as you know, and I'm in Miami, which, makes Christmas even better. Christmas on the beach.
So Joe mentioned it, but how many times growing up did people ask you if you were related to Brittany and Jamie Lynn Spears?
Um, Literally every day of my life. I mean, all the way up through college, where I would get a call from like my financial advisor, and we'd get off the phone, and they would be like, "One more thing before we let you go." And I'm like, "Sure, what?" And they're like, "Are you related to Britney Spears?" And I'm like, "No," but it's a good last name. I'll keep it.
Can you sing?
I cannot sing. If you ask my boyfriend, who is a singer, he will say that I hit notes every now and again.
It just depends on, where would you say is your favorite place to sing? You a car singer, a shower singer? Where's your go-to spot?
I feel like I'm an embarrassing singer. Like if I can sing and embarrass my boyfriend wherever that's at, that's where I'm going to do it.
Well, that's great. You play off of each other, right? So if you're out and there's a song that comes on and you're singing it, and all of a sudden he comes in and he kind of like, pairs up with you,
Yeah.
he could elevate you, right?
Yeah, I like to make sure that everybody knows that I'm the singer in the family, clearly. And I like to make sure that I sing Taylor Swift often and loud for my boyfriend, which he hates.
Any luck getting Taylor Swift tickets for the upcoming concert tour?
No, but I did tell my boyfriend that I expect tickets because
Oof.
he's in the industry. I'm like,
Right.
I expect tickets nonetheless.
Yeah, I think you, me, and my wife should go see the concert at MetLife Stadium when you're in New York, and we'll figure out a way to get in there.
Absolutely. I feel like we can totally finagle
Be
There you go,
nice.
Nick.
that.
So according to the internet, right, your birthday, your 5 life path. Is that correct?
I'm a what?
A 5 life path.
What does that mean?
So if you add up all the digits in your birthday without reducing master numbers, you get the total number of 5.
Oh, I've honestly never done that.
There you go.
So what does that mean, Joe?
Well, first we have to confirm her birthday, so she needs to give us permission.
Yes,
Okay.
you can confirm my birthday.
Okay, so I see November 16th, 1994. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm a Scorpio.
Okay. So in that instance, because November is the 11th month and 11 is a master number, when you add the total up, you don't reduce from 11 down, right? So it would be 11 plus 1 plus 6 plus 1 plus 9 plus 4. And then in that case, a plus 1, 9, 9, and 4. And in that case, you are a 5 life path. So 5 life paths, Nick gave me notes. Half of them are wrong, but it's all right. But yeah, 5 is essentially in numerology. It's the number of change, it's the number of travel, it's the number of variety, and it's the number of the model. Usually people who are born on 5 days or 5 life paths are good-looking people and do stuff related to modeling.
Wow.
Could be in the entertainment industry, right? But usually they use their good looks to their advantage, right? So does any of this apply directly to you, Caitlin?
Wow. I mean, I would say most of that applies to me. I would say hands down every single category you listed is a part of my life in some form.
There you go. And you are also partially born on a 7 day, the 1 6. So 1 and 6, 7 is the number of individuality, spirituality. People who are born on 7 days or 7 life paths tend to be more intelligent and smarter than the rest.
I would
So
like to tell my boyfriend that every day.
There you go. That's
I like to
hysterical.
think I'm the smartest one in the house, but let's be real. I like to be the dumbest one in the room because we all like to learn from people.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, speaking of that, we were in the same room a few months ago in Las Vegas with some really smart people. And it was quite the whirlwind. And obviously, a highlight of your year was obviously meeting us, of course. Just kidding.
100%. That was
But
the first thing that came out of that.
so we had dinner at Grimaldi's. So the question here is for you, you lived in a bunch of different places.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think you've had the best pizza in your lifetime?
Oh, I hands down know exactly where this is at. It's going to sound so weird. You're not going to believe me. We went for like 2 or 3 weeks to Tulum, and there was this little hole in the wall place on the beach owned by some Italians, and they make all of their pizza and all of their pasta completely fresh. And we ate it. We were the only people at the restaurant. We ate it on the beach. And I swear to this day, it's the best pizza and pasta that I've ever had in my entire life. And I couldn't even tell you the name of the restaurant.
Wow. I didn't see that one coming, Joe.
No, but I mean, listen, if they are natives and they wanted to set up a business down there, and honestly, setting it up on the beach in Tulum, it's not a bad business model at all. Yeah, I believe her. It's definitely an interesting story.
Yeah, it was like nice. We didn't make a reservation. We didn't know what we were doing. We had got lost on the scooters. We were like running late to everywhere. And we were like, oh, let's just like jump into this little place and let's see if we can get in. And then just being like the best restaurant we ate at the entire tour there.
There you go. So you obviously traveled the world a lot, but your roots are in Oklahoma. And for those of us outside of Oklahoma, we don't know much about Oklahoma other than the Sooners, Oklahoma Sooners. And we think like a lot about like the rodeo and stuff. So tell us, what your childhood was like, and then you say you hate the Sooners. So where'd you go to college? What was your college experience like?
Okay, so we'll start with my childhood. I honestly had one of the best childhoods that I personally think you can have. I grew up on a cow farm. My entire life had meat cows, so I grew up, helping my grandpa feed cows and, getting from truck. And the coolest thing, my grandparents owned convenience stores and things like that. We were in Wilburton. I'm from Wilburton, Oklahoma. If you don't know where that's at, it's in the middle of nowhere. The closest city is about 2.5 hours away. Closest airport, 2.5 hours away, unless you have a private plane. Again, I grew up on a cow farm, so I got to be a kid. I got to go outside. I raced 4-wheelers and dirt bikes when I was little. I broke my wrist, both of them. I broke my elbow. Yeah, I got to be a kid, and I got to go back roading and do all the things that people in cities don't really do or even know. We didn't even have a coffee shop in my town. I mean, when I went to college, I remember my roommate being like, "What did you go to Starbucks?" And I'm like, "No, you made coffee in a pot at home because there's not a Starbucks in town. There's one grocery store." But it was great. And as far as the Sooners go, I went to OSU for a semester, and then I actually decided that I was going to give modeling a real shot. So I went and did modeling for a bit. Then I actually left modeling because it was stressed me out, and I went back to school, this time at the University of Arkansas, and I stayed there until I went back to modeling and finally moved out of the country.
Wow, how about that? Interesting. So
It was a journey like this.
small town girl, you got to
Yeah.
pursue modeling. What's the culture shock like for you going to Los Angeles or wherever it is you went to start your career off?
So for me, started with America's Next Top Model. I don't know if you know the show, but Tyra Banks.
Tyra Banks.
So growing up, I was obsessed with America's Next Top Model. The
Great.
smize, everything. So I actually got, when was that? I think it was 18, and I got scouted for America's Next Top Model. So that's kind of how it all began. And this is also because I was scouted and I went through all the rounds and I got all the excitement, all the buildup, thinking this was going to be like my big break. And it didn't happen. I made it to the last round before they fly you to LA, and they cut me and they told me that I needed to work on my body. And at 18 years old, that was really, really hard to hear. And I think it took me years to figure out that it wasn't me, it was them. But, when you tell somebody who's never been in the industry, who's lived on a cow farm their whole life, they need to work on their body at 18 years old when they weigh 110 pounds, it definitely does something to you. And so I think it took years for me to finally be like, you know what? It's not my body. It was you and it wasn't me. And this wasn't the right path for me. And at the time, I didn't know that, but now I know that I'm so happy I didn't go down the reality TV path. And it wasn't the journey for me. And life knew that, and I didn't at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly all worked out for you. And look at you
Yeah.
now. But speaking one last time about this, growing up on the cow farm, I got to know what's your go-to milk. I mean, you grew up with the natural cow milk. There's 2% now, 1% non-fat. There's the cashew milk, almond milk, coconut milk. There's so many
Goat
different
milk.
milks. I don't know, technically I don't really know how you get any milk out of like a nut, but it happens. So you grew up around milk, you grew up around cows. What's your go-to milk, either in your cereal or your coffee, whatever it is you happen to have your milk with?
So get this, at 10 years old, I actually was diagnosed super lactose intolerant.
Oh
Nice.
boy, that's the wrong question, Nick.
No, it's the right. Now she's
Yeah.
gonna tell us how she drinks other things.
Yes. So I'm not sure how they squeeze the almonds, but I do prefer coconut or almond milk.
Okay.
Um,
Same in my
it's
household.
Yeah, I don't like to be sick.
Right.
So I choose to do the milk that doesn't hurt my stomach. And
Mhm.
I'm a huge cereal person. So I remember at being 10 years old and being so confused why my stomach hurt every time I would have a massive bowl of cereal. And then we switched. And in Oklahoma at this time, all there was soy milk. In my tiny little grocery store, there was like one can of soy milk, and that was all there was. And I remember thinking it was absolutely disgusting, but I had to drink it. And when they came out with all these different milks, I was like, yes, yes.
So back to modeling. You got into work with some prestigious brands, Victoria's Secret Swim, Betsey Johnson. So what was it like individually working for those companies? And in the industry, those companies afford you the opportunity to be able to go to events around the country, possibly around the world, right? So where do you think was the coolest place or event working for those prestigious brands that you ended up going to?
So actually, one of my first big jobs when I was like 18 or 19 years old was working for Betsey Johnson, which was super cool. She was one of the first official, like, huge designers that hired me while I was still in Oklahoma. So I was still with the small agency that I had there. And it was just amazing because I remember following her brand my entire life and thinking she was so cool and so amazing. And she picked me out of all the girls she could have picked. She picked me and one other girl. And I don't know if you remember, but this would have been, I guess, 10 years ago now. She was opening up her line inside of all the Macy's and Dillard's across the United States. So she had models, me and another girl, who basically went with her and opened up the stores. And I just remember we had like champagne and backstage food. It was my first experience having like the security guards, and we got to go and like host the news with Betsey Johnson. And it was a really, really cool experience for someone who had never been on TV or, done a lot of things in the industry. It was my big break, and it was so much fun. And she was truly an absolutely amazing person to work for. She was, as she is on camera, is as she is off camera. She is funny, and she is like whimsical, and she laughs and she dances, and she was just really an awesome person to work for. And I'm so grateful that was my first experience really in the industry.
Small town girl from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
working at a very young age for somebody like that, prestigious companies, Nick and I always ask this question, right? So where in the process do you have a manager, right? Where in the process did that happen? Did it happen relatively early because those opportunities for you were afforded to you at a much younger age? Have you only had one manager? Have you cycled through a couple of managers and agents? And do you think, especially in your industry, because Nick and I, we don't really have too many models on with us, so we get to ask this. Do you think it's necessary, or can somebody like you with the right people behind them ultimately end up representing themselves as opposed to going that route?
Yeah, all good questions. So I wouldn't say I started super young, because when I started at 18, I was modeling with girls that were 12 and 13 years old and had already left the country and modeled in China. And so for me, I immediately felt old in an industry where they make 18-year-olds feel old, which is just, it's crazy to make an 18-year-old feel old. But it's funny, what I learned too is these 12-year-olds are the one modeling women's clothes, women's wedding dresses, women's, and you're just like, they haven't even fully formed into full women yet.
Right.
Right.
So that experience was definitely eye-opening for me. As far as having a management goes, I got really, really lucky. My old manager in Oklahoma, Brink Model Management, her name was Heather. She was my official first mother agent, which means when you have a mother agent, it basically just means they book you out into your other agencies when you move on out of that state. And they forever and ever get, 5 to 10%, whatever the deal is, for the agencies they put you with. But for me, I got really lucky. She was great, and she loved me, and she scouted me. She found me. She had me come in. I didn't believe that it was real. I was like, modeling in Oklahoma, okay. But yeah, it was real and it worked out. And I won't say that it was an easy, direct path. It was definitely ups and downs and learning curves, and being 18 and hormonal, and a lot of things were challenging me. But as far as agencies go, I've had quite a few. As a model, you have to find the right fit for you. And sometimes that can be challenging in an industry where there's so many beautiful girls competing for the same jobs. And you're all beautiful and you're all talented, and you should book the job, but it's just, you've got to find the people that believe in you, because if your agency and your bookers don't believe in you and you don't have that bond, it's just not going to work, and you're going to be sad all the time because you're not getting booked and you're not working. So, I've gone from smaller agencies. I've been with Wilhelmina. I'm with Ford. I'm with O Models in LA. I've been with models or agencies overseas, in Turkey, in England. And I did some modeling when I was in Bali. But it's all different. Like, you can sign with as many agencies as you want. I also had an agency in Mexico City. So basically, any state or country that you go to, you'll have a representative in that state or country, unless you're with like IMG Worldwide, which means basically anywhere that they are, you would be represented. It's a big chain of things, but I definitely think, listen to your heart. If it's something doesn't feel right in your heart and in your gut, it's probably not the right fit. And it's okay to politely be like, look, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so grateful for it, but I think that we need to part ways and find somebody who's a better fit for both of us. Because I'm not making you money, you're not making me money. Why are we together? And as far as girls go who are not represented by an agency, I do think it's possible. I do think it's a lot harder if you want to just be a full-time model. Now, if you're acting and modeling and doing all these different things, sure, you can jump on Casting Network, you can jump on Actors Access, or, New Book, or all these little apps they have now. But if you want to be full-time, I would find it really difficult to do that on your own, at least until you've created a name for yourself, because there's certain clients that don't work with unrepresented girls. Those really big clients, they work directly through an agency because they've done it for so long, and they know that they're going to show up, they're going to do their job, they're going to get paid, they're going to go home. Like, they know that they're responsible, they're signed with an agency. And sometimes I think that's like the middle factor. And so if a girl's not represented, she 100% can still work. I just don't know if it's your best bet if you've never modeled and you don't really have a name in the industry yet. I think having an agency who you know, like, and trust with your career is always best.
Very well said. Great insight. I'm sure all of our aspiring model listeners will take that advice to heart. That's what our show's all about, giving everybody their origin stories. And if you want to pursue a career path, this is the podcast for you. So that was some great advice for sure. You mentioned listening to your heart. So we got to talk about you and James Maslow, your boyfriend. How did you meet him, and who made the first move? Who asked who out, and what was the first date?
So we met in the most LA way possible. We met on Raya. And it's funny, I had just come back from a modeling contract in Istanbul. I'd been back for about a month. I had a really bad breakup. And one of my friends was like, hey, jump on this app and just get out there. Go and date, get out there. And I didn't even know what Raya is. I was like, I'm from Oklahoma. I have no idea what this even is. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Just request to get on. They're going to approve you. Jump on. And I was like, all right, I'm in. 3 days later, I'm approved. I'm on the app. I've been on the app for 3 days, and James Maslow sends me a message. And it was different because he wasn't, asking me to go out for drinks or like a late night thing or just like texting at midnight. He was like, hey, do you want to get lunch next week? I was like, interesting. I'll think about it. And it's funny, I had a lucky number at the time. I'd been saying 87 a lot. And in the message he sent me, he was like, I know it's going to sound like I'm 87 years old, but I'm going to bed, because he was just going to bed early, super early. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, now I have to go on a date because that's like my lucky number at the time. And long story short, we had lunch at Creation on 3rd Street in LA. We found out that we liked each other. We actually had to cut the date short because I had a casting and he had something come up with work. But we figured out we were both going to Coachella in like 5 days. So we ended up meeting up at Coachella, and we've been dating ever since.
So a few questions here. I want to talk about this app, but first with James. Did you know who he was? Were you a big time Rush fan, or did you have to look up who he was before you met up?
No, so I actually had no idea for our first date. I had no clue. And the only way that I found out was my sister or someone was like, oh, let me see that photo. Like, I think I know him. And I was just sitting there like, okay, this is already going south. She was like, no. Like, I think I know him from TV. And I was like, oh, okay. Geez, thank God. And it ended up she knew him from watching Big Time Rush growing up. I'm 28, so I think it missed me by a few years, but all my sisters watched it. So then I kind of knew that he was, special, I guess you could say, but I had never watched it and I didn't really know all the hype around it. I had no idea how big the show was or how big he was. And so I think that really was pivotal in our relationship, that there was no like boundaries, because I just looked at him as a normal person. Right. To me, he was just this guy. You were going on a date. If it went well, it went well. If we didn't like each other, like, we'd move on with our lives and that would be it.
Yeah, it definitely worked out great for you there. So a question for you about app dating, because I never been on an app. I'm a married man, married my girlfriend from high school. My buddy here, Joe, though, and Joe knows where I'm going with this. We're looking this to get him up with his perfect match. So would you recommend he checks out the apps? What are some things you'd recommend he wouldn't do? Right now he's down in Florida. Where should he be looking for love? Or is it going to just be like Rihanna said, finding love in a hopeless place?
There's always that. But From my experience, I think you shouldn't be looking at the clubs or the late nights or the places where you don't want to spend your relationship time. I think you should be looking in the healthy places, be that at the gym, or you go to coffee and you see someone who's sitting by themselves, you introduce yourself, not creepily, but just, in a nice way. Go to a park, walk around. If you got a dog, always a great introduction to have a cute little dog. But online dating is really cool because you have access to so many people that you would never, you may never come in contact in your entire life had you not met through this app. And I think it's really cool. We live in this digital era where we can do that. We open ourselves up to so many more possibilities than we've ever had before. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You go on a bad date and you never see them again.
Yeah. What do you think, Joe? Good advice?
Looks like I'm gonna not have to go to the Jersey Shore anymore.
Stay away.
Have to stay away from that. Obviously, that's not where I'm gonna find the next missus.
No, I
Maybe
think
cross
not.
the bridge.
Yes.
Right.
Good idea. Good idea. All right. So, Caitlin, you end up moving with James to Las Vegas. So, what was your time like there, living in the desert in Las Vegas? And then tell us about the big move to Miami and what the big differences are between living on the West Coast and the East Coast.
Well, so we lived together in our Venice property in California for just over 2 years before he decided he wanted to get a house in Vegas. And I was very against it, very against it. I loved my life in LA. I created a life there. It was a lot for me. So we ended up making a compromise as I kept my place in LA. And so we still had an LA place while we rented our Venice property. And then we got the Vegas house, which I think it was a good learning experience because we learned all the things we had to work together on that we weren't necessarily having to work together on before. I think that was our third year of dating, and it was a pivotal year because it challenged us. We had two houses, we had two cars, we had a dog, we were both working full time. We were traveling back and forth, we were exhausted, we were happy in LA and I was unhappy. So it was a year of growth and a year of really being ourselves and being like, we have to do this together. Like, we are in this together and we're building this life. So we've got to figure out where we can both be happy. And so that was a huge step for us. We really sat down and let's figure that out. Let's put energy and let's put time into making sure that we're happy because we work so hard and so in came Miami. So you ask and the universe, it gives it to you. We took a 3 trip to Miami and we had been here a bunch of times, but never like looking for a place to live. And pivotal moment of looking for a place to live in Miami found us. I was like, I can see myself life here with you, and you can see yourself creating a tropical island feel. I love Latin culture, so you got the Latin down here. I'm with Ford Models, so it worked out. I travel work a lot, so we're like, when I'm home, I am on vacation. So yeah, that's how we landed on Miami, and we've been here for 2 months, and I can truly say it was the best that we ever made.
Yeah, it's a really nice place. I know Joe was down there a few weeks ago, and as the great Adnan Burke, a former guest, said, nothing says South Beach like Calabrese. Joe, I know you enjoyed your time down there, right?
I did. Got to go to the Dan Le Batard event. Didn't really get to hang out by the beach as much as I wanted to, but I got to go around a little bit. But yeah, Miami is definitely, like, in terms of vibe, it's somewhere where hopefully maybe down the line I set up the permanent shop there as well.
All right. A lot of headquarters for Joe moving forward. He wants to be in Vegas, LA, Miami. I mean, all the hot spots. And he's got his
I
Michigan
recommend
roots.
Miami, LA, Vegas, all the way on the ground.
There you go.
Not a fan of Vegas, we see. Okay, so you've had a pretty wild last 10 years of your life, a lot of traveling, meeting a lot of different people. Give us some of the best celebrity interactions or notable names you've interacted with that have been like positives. And if you can, you don't have to, don't get you in trouble, but give me someone who was just like a total jerk and you're like, ugh, I wish I never met this person.
Okay. I'm not sure how much I can say on the total jerk person. I've
Uh-oh.
met, luckily, I haven't met a ton of absolute assholes, which is great. But I did recently, we sit at the game. Why am I blanking on his name? He's huge. Mark Wahlberg? Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
We
Hmm.
were at the UFC fight and we went as Dana White's guest. And, I've met huge people in my life, but it was such a casual interaction and it was so genuine that I truly, like, my heart melted. He was one of the nicest, most genuine people. He turned around to us, he had a conversation with us for 20 minutes. He introduced himself like, "Hi, I'm Mark." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, we know. We pretty sure we all know who you are." But it was cool that he was just so like, "Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Mark." And then like talked to James for 20 or 30 minutes. We were talking about our families and the fight and his kids. And it was just a really, really awesome experience to meet somebody who's so huge and so well known. And they can just be so genuine and still just want to talk to you as a normal human for 30 minutes, even though he probably talks to people all day, every day. So that was definitely a super cool experience. It's funny, I'm not a celebrity person, so it's like even hard for me. Like I meet celebrities all the time through
Right.
my boyfriend, but notable ones, also living in LA, everybody's a celebrity.
Right.
So I kind of am just brain fogged when I think about celebrities. I met Sophia Bush one time and she was absolutely wonderful. She was one of the sweetest people I've ever met. It was when I first moved to LA and she gave me her table at the coffee shop. I'll never forget it. I was like little starstruck and I'm never starstruck, but
It's all very nice. You're not the first person who's told me that they met Mark Wahlberg in person. He was just awesome. It seems like he's one of those. So that's incredibly interesting. Uh, I went to a UFC event back at the Garden last month. It was 281. It was when I don't know if you know any of the fighters. James might, right? Because that's more of his thing. But it's when Adesanya got knocked out towards the very end of the fight. That was crazy. So hopefully maybe one day catch you guys at a UFC event.
I've been obsessed with fighting since growing up. I watched WWE SmackDowns every week with Hulk Hogan. So I've been with fighting since I was a little kid. And when I got to go sit front row at UFC, I was just like, I'm yelling. I don't even know who's fighting, but I'm just like in it. It's so there's something like people just beating the crap out of things they do. I'm just like, I'm in awe every time. Awe. So much fun. And I highly that I get invited to.
So we want to talk about you attending nutrition school. So at the top, I mentioned that you're a very spiritual and holistic person. And obviously, in order to keep your figure, you have to maintain certain healthy lifestyles. And I follow up with James on social media, and I noticed that he does a lot of training on the side, right? He does like Muay Thai training, right? So obviously, you two keep yourselves very active, very healthy mindset. So where did the fascination with nutrition start? When did you make a decision that it's something that you wanted to pursue and eventually go to school for? And where do you plan on taking that once you finish that process?
Yeah, so that has been this year. That has been my trials and tribulations of 2022. I've been modeling for a decade and I found myself just not fully satisfied, not fully feeling fulfilled. I was unfulfilled, and I'm working, with some of the biggest jobs, some of the biggest names in the industry, and I'm just not fulfilled. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not making myself happy, and I'm not living my true authentic self. So I started talking about it, putting it out there. I started crying about it because you gotta shed tears in the health and nutrition field, because I'd always been very excited and very into health and nutrition with my career and just my life in general. So I think it was kind of a path that I knew at some point I might go on, but it was really just a year of asking questions and getting involved and figuring out what I do like and what I don't like. And I met this girl, and she was like, "Oh, no way, you're going to love this school. My friend went to it." And so she sends me to school. It's the school I'm attending now, which is IIN. It's the Institute of Integrated Nutrition. It's based out of New York. It's an online school, and it's holistic health based, and I'm obsessed with it. She sent it to me. I jumped on a call with one of the counselors. We talked for like 2 hours. They kept checking in with me. I knew I wanted to do it, but it's a time commitment. Like, you really got to make time for it. And I hadn't been in school in so long. I was just like a little nervous. I wasn't going to be able to keep up with the pace. But I finally, in July, was like, you know what? No, I'm making time for it. Like, regardless of how busy I am, I'll take my computer everywhere with me. I'm going to make this happen. So I enrolled, and I've now been in the program for 6 months. It's a 1-year program basically. So I have a few more months left, but I'm in the part of my course now where we're starting doing like live sessions, and I can take potential clients on and things like that. But the school's really, it's opened my eyes to the bio-individual, multidimensional health world that there is. And it's been such a cool learning experience. And I think it also reminded me how much I miss learning. I miss education. I feel like for so many years, I knew how to do my job. I didn't have to, no one was educating me on it. I've been doing it for so long. It's so easy. I can wake up and do it. But I needed something that challenged me. I needed something that engaged my brain. I'm back to reading all the time. I'm back to learning. And I think I want to continue that even when I graduate, because I think it's so important that no matter what industry you're in, you continue to learn and you continue to challenge yourself. And so the health and nutrition world has been that for me. It's been something that's giving me hope, and it's giving me excitement again. And I'm feeling so fulfilled, and I'm feeling excited to share all that I've learned and all I'm going to continue to learn to people all over the world whenever I'm ready to start up my business, which I'm actually in the process of doing right now.
Very nice. We could hear the passion in your voice about this, which is great. We've had a nutritionist on with us before, Lisa, who works with a lot of different clients, and it's very fascinating to hear about the lifestyle and all the passion behind it. So appreciate that answer, of course. Now, we need to ask you, what would you say is your I'm right moment? So what I mean by that is a time or place in your life, whether it's professional or personal, where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, "Caitlin, don't do that. That's a terrible idea." And you were like, "You know what? I'm going to do it anyway." And ultimately, you will see why it is that I'm right.
I think that was modeling for me. Growing up in a small town, people doubted me. People were like, "You can't make that a full-time career. You'll never be." There's like a 1 in a million chance you'd ever be one of those girls who can actually make money modeling. You're from Oklahoma. You're from a small town. And starting my senior year of high school, I started driving 3.5 hours every time I had work. And I would go back to school. And girls were really mean. I grew up in a school where, there's a lot of drama. It's a very small school. Girls don't like girls that they can't do.
And Girls, better movie, not so much in real life.
Not so much.
It's a great story. And yeah, take that, Tyra Banks. So last question from me. Mentioned it before at the very beginning with everything else, but you are a Scorpio, right? So I don't have to ask you your zodiac sign. So this is the part where I explain to Nick what the sign entails and everything about it, right? So it's a water sign, right? So very passionate, very emotional. Of all the water signs, I think it's got the most depth to it, right? Scorpio rules over certain things like shared resources and stuff like that. And I think obviously in your relationship with James, you can kind of see how the I think he was born in New York and then he moved to LA at a young age, right? So he's been involved in the industry since he was at a very young age. You're the Midwestern country girl, right? So
Yep.
very worlds collide, right? Very like kind of sporadic, you know, what's the word? Serendipitous
Yep.
meeting between the two of you where it kind of was very unexpected, right? So that usually follows Scorpios around, right? That kind of mystical way of their life that nobody can really explain. And what I will say about Scorpios too is that if you're born in the month of Scorpio, right? Or if you have Scorpio on your ascendant, which is your rising sign, which rules over your appearance, the most notable feature is the eyes. Scorpios have incredibly intense eyes. So to wrap it up, my question is how many times have people come up to you, especially in the world of modeling through the years, and the first thing that they mentioned to you was your intense eyes, not so much the hair or the rest of the features of the face, like the lips or stuff, or the eyes?
100% every single time. Because I have really piercing blue eyes and they're various. And 100%, 10 out of 10, every single person that comes up to me is, oh my gosh, you have great eyes. Yeah.
There you go. And yes, you do.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And we thank you for your time,
You
Caitlin. We really, really appreciate it. You gave us really, really great answers. Nick and I wish you and James the best moving forward. Uh, Continue to get acclimated in Miami. Hopefully, Nick and I will be able to see you guys in person again very, very soon, like we did in Vegas. And what we do here is we always give our guests the last words. So obviously, you're somebody who has a lot to share and promote. So if there's anything else that you would like to share or promote before you leave us, go right ahead. Once again, we really, really appreciate your time. And this was a lot of fun. Thank you again for doing it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys both for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think the universe brings good people together. I recently had a conversation on Zoom or IG Live with another girl who I met at the same event in Vegas. So I think it was a really cool moment to meet some amazing people all over the world. And that's so special. And thank you guys so much for having me on. If anybody watches this and you want to follow along with my journey, I am about to open my own business starting next year. So if you're into health, nutrition, inspiration, empowerment, anything like that, go ahead and just give me a follow on my Instagram. It's just Complete by Caitlin, or my full name, Caitlin Shey Spears. And I'm that on all platforms. And yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Caitlin. We appreciate your time here. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. We wish Caitlin the best of luck with getting her router situation sorted out in Miami. And we thank you so much for your time. So that's going to do it here for our very special guest, Caitlin Shey Spears, for my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I am Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.